Been waiting so long for this, it's finally time to talk about Dune Part 2. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. Now, I'm excited to talk about this film for many reasons. First of all, and probably the most important, it's an incredible film. So yeah, that enough gives you reason to talk about it. 2021's Dune was a great film. I loved it. I covered it on this channel. It's actually to this day one of the most popular videos I made on this channel. I think it's particularly because due to very unusual circumstances, this huge Hollywood film was released in Europe before it was in America. And that's why I believe, you know, I got a lot of traffic on my YouTube channel doing a review for a film that wasn't out yet in some parts of the world. Usually it's the other way around. I'm sort of last because Europe, you know, it's a bit later sometimes. Anyway, and I'm also a fan of the books. I've not read all the books yet. When I did the review back then, which I will obviously leave a link to at the end of this video for, I was in the middle of, or I can't remember, maybe I was about to do God Emperor of Dune. I've read that in the meantime. Wow, you know, it's a great book. So yes, I am familiar with the books up to there. I'm familiar with the general story even beyond God Emperor. I just love the whole universe. You know, I used to play Dune 2, the Battle for Arrakis back in the 90s, you know. Spoilers, there are no quads, trikes or siege tanks in this, so that's a bit of a letdown, but there you go. I mean, some things you have to just, you know, get rid of in order to make a film. Yeah, so I was really excited to watch this film, and yeah, like I said, it's an incredible film. It's not perfect, I mean, which film is? I do actually have some issues with the film. None of them, you know, in any way really impact my viewing pleasure. I can't wait to see the film again, you know, but there are just some things that I feel like, yeah, you know, if there were a parallel universe, maybe we could have this in this film. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. So, I will briefly talk about the plot. I mean, I do assume that people who watch this are more familiar with the Dune universe, but still I will do that, especially because it's a part 2. Now, in the first part, we saw the House Atreides coming to the sand planet Arrakis, and basically, due to various deceitful plots between the House Harkonnen and the Emperor, they were completely wiped out. House Harkonnen retook control of Arrakis, and Paul, our main character, and his mother Jessica, they fled to the desert where they met the Fremen, the desert people, the secret society, I'll call it, living in caverns, etc. throughout the desert. So in the second part, which we are in now, Paul and Jessica, they are learning about the Fremen culture, they are integrating into it, and they are leaning into this prophecy that exists of an outer world person coming in to liberate the Fremen, to make sure that they retake control of the planet itself as the indigenous people. They lean into that. You see how they gradually convert the Fremen to this belief and sort of, you could even say abuse it, yeah, in that sense, because it's all based on faith, you know, and they're leaning into it. I mean, it's very complicated, I won't get into it, but there's a lot of reasons for this, not just being a sort of superstitious story, you know, or being exactly a superstitious story, depending on the way you are. I'll just say that Bene Gesserit did a great job on Arrakis with the indigenous people. Anyway, so we've got that going on. We get to see a lot more about the Harkonnens. We even get to see their home world, Gidi Prime. They, as the Fremen, you know, take on all the new things that Paul and his mother bring to them because they are fierce fighters, but they've also got methods that they bring to them as far as warfare is concerned, etc. They start to interrupt the spice harvest, which is the main reason of existence for Arrakis. So that's what everyone's there for. Spice, if you're not familiar with it, is this drug. You see in the film, it sort of shimmers orangey in the sand, you know, and it's this drug that is used particularly by the navigators for interstellar travel. But it's also, it prolongs life, it elevates you know, conscious to another level, all these kind of things. So it's basically a wonder drug. The whole galaxy runs on it. So as you can imagine, the only planet that produces it is obviously very valuable. The Fremen, you know, they want to get rid of everyone. They're like, this is our planet, we want to turn it into paradise again, and they just want rid of everyone. They, you know, really heavily interfere with the spice harvest. The Harkonnens, they obviously have to up their operation there, so that's why we get to see Gidi Prime, because we've got the Baron Harkonnen and his two nephews, and we finally get to see the other one, Phaedra Altha, who plays a much bigger part in this film. We didn't even see him in the first one, by the way. And he is sent, you know, to take over Arrakis and to finally get rid of the Fremen. And we see all this escalate, right? And that's basically what it's about. As usual, I won't give you spoilers, although this story is very well known, but still, you know, that's where I'll leave it. So the battle for the galaxy and possession of this planet, you could say, rages on, basically. Yes, that's all I'll tell you about the plot. Now, it's done really well. Dune is a book, you know, it's difficult. This is all just the first and second film. It's just about the first book. And even although it's not such a big book, it's really dense. It's so complex. In an ideal world, we probably would have had at least 3 films to cover just the story of the first book. It's that dense, or maybe even more films, because there's so much going on. There's a lot of politicking going on. It's not boring, though. It's really interesting. You're in characters' heads a lot. There's just so much going on with so many characters, and you've got the universe and blah, blah, blah. Really too much to cover. So with that being said, what they did here with the story is really good. It's so compact, but we don't lose focus of the important parts. We have to shed some things from the story, characters, events, all sorts of stuff, but it's understandable. You have to figure out, when you're doing films in particular, what is your main focus? And they did a really great job here. Yeah, we're still focused on the same characters. We just add, not even a handful new ones. We get to see their worlds. Like I say, Giri Prime is a brilliant addition because we get to see more of our foes, the House Harkonnen. Speaking of Giri Prime, I mean, visually, the whole film, let's talk about visuals. The whole film looks amazing. It's just incredible. The cinematography, I mean, Greg Fraser, you know, and together obviously with Denis Villeneuve, I mean, they made great decisions here. I just would love to have their camera. It's interesting, one thing I observed is, you never have too many people in one shot. What I mean by that is obviously you've got shots of groups of people, but what I'm saying is when you just have people talking, it's quite often, or even when no one's talking, you don't have wide shots of characters that much. Quite often, I felt, at least it was my impression, we're on faces of people. And it all just looks so beautiful. The camera, the quality, the light, the colors, everything. It's so amazing. Like I said, I'd love to have that camera, you know, just to film stuff and film people. Make everything look beautiful. But one of the most impressive, scenes, it's not just a scene, it's a whole, I suppose you could say, section of the film, is on Giri Prime, I feel, for a lot of people. And you think it's filmed, it's a black and white filter, or it was filmed, you know, just somehow in black and white, until you delve deeper, and I found out that it's actually filmed in infrared. And as someone who doesn't know anything about cinematography and cameras and filters and all sorts of stuff, that just boggles my mind. I'm like, how do you even come up with that idea? But it's brilliant because it's not just a black and white filter, it just looks otherworldly. Everything looks so smooth, the skin, and it just looks very eerie. It gives the Harkonnens this really, really weird look. And it just works well in the scenes that we've got there. I'm not going to spoil them. It's just visually, that's probably, despite all the other great shots, that's probably the thing that I loved the most about it, because it's just great. It just really, yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just one of the best things visually I've ever seen. It's so cool. And black and white is just visually how it's used on screen with the characters and things that you see. It sticks with you, it definitely does. So visually there's so much to see here. Special effects are great, the ships and everything, we've got so many massive things, it's all done so well. Hard to believe it was all done on a $90 million budget. You know, we've got all these comic book films that are failing with a lot more money being pumped into them. Here, once again, showing if you're being very precise, you know, and methodical with your decisions as to visual effects, you can keep the budgets lower. Not that $190 million is a low budget, don't get me wrong, but they've been ballooning in the recent years, so it's great to see that they're being dialed down a bit and you still get incredible results. Right, yeah. Actors are wonderful, there's so many great things. I actually don't want to, I could go on talking for another 10 minutes easily. I don't want to do that. I want to keep my reviews rather short, at least I try to. One thing, there are a lot of changes from the book. I'm not going to talk about them. If you are interested in a lot of the changes, one channel in particular I can recommend that's just about Dune and anything Dune related is a channel called Quinn's Ideas. And it's a guy who talks a lot about science fiction stories. And I've discovered a lot through him, through his channel, but his videos on Dune are phenomenal. Even as retellings of the book, as it were, or sort of summarizing them in an hour-long video. He'll do one book, so you get a good overview of everything. But even just here talking about the comparisons between the film and the book and what they changed, they're a lot more than I realise and remember because it's been a few years since I read the book, but it's all really cool to see. And one thing that I really liked here is you've got this, they're luckily leaning into the religious aspect of Dune, because we've got a society, the Fremen, that are turning more and more fanatical, religious. And I feel that if this film were made in the 90s, or a bit like it was in the 80s film, the Lynch film, you'd have Hollywood turning this into, a typical hero story and everything's great, and we've bested, we've won over the baddies, we've won the battle against them, and everything's hunky-dory. But here they really lean into this aspect of the Dune story where, yes, we've got Paul, and at the start you're like, oh yes, revenge and all that, and as the story goes on, you're like, okay, he's really changing, in this case, universal society, into a beast that he, first of all, loses control over. But second of all, you're like, is he the good guy? It's a bit difficult to say. And it says a lot about fanaticism itself. And I love in this film, it's slight spoiler, I suppose, it's portrayed between Paul and Chani a lot more, their relationship, because she is seeing all this happen and she does not like what he's doing or what his presence is doing to her people, the Fremen. And I thought that was just really cool. There's so many things I would have loved to see more, just to sort of tick off a few things. The Sardaukar, after the big setup in the first film, I thought we would see a lot more of them, especially, because of the cool vocal stuff they did. I thought they were going to hear these battle chants going as they're marching into battle, all these things. That, their presence was just not felt here. The final battle as well. Spoiler, but yeah, I've set it up, there's obviously fights and wars going on. The final battle itself, while it was massive on screen, somehow it didn't feel as massive, or as epic. I don't know, in the Lynch film I felt like it was more epic and it felt, more like a battle. Here it's like, okay, we're showing you a few scenes and then, the battle's over. For me, it was just over too quickly. It's difficult, of course, this is a nearly 3-hour film, how long are you going to make it? Like I say, it's so dense. They focused on important things. I love that we're still focused on the characters, even although this is such a universe-spanning story, even although it happens on just one planet. But basically, you know what I mean, it's the whole universe is involved in the story. But we're still focused on individual characters. The Lady Jessica, Paul's mother, she is really something else in this film. So they've changed her character a bit, but I think it really works well. This generally the Bene Gesserit, you really get to know them in this film, and her, she really has some scenes where like, okay, don't know where she's going, with her story, with her approach and character, but it's really cool, it's kind of frightening, so it's really amazing. Yeah, I could talk about so many other things. Like I say, I want to keep this video short. What I'm going to say is, it is an incredibly good film. It's a great follow-up from the second one. I would say it's better just in all sorts of terms, but watch 1 and 2 together, they are a whole. Can't wait to see what Denis Villeneuve does with Dune Messiah, because this film sets it up so perfectly. There's just the way it ends, you're like, okay, there's more coming, and yes, that's Dune Messiah, that's the second book, just in case you're wondering. And that's going to be really exciting, seeing how he's going to tackle that, because it really takes this whole religious aspect further. And that will be really incredible to see. One thing I want to say in closing is, one thing I'm very sad about is my mother passed recently. So as I'm filming this, it was a month ago, and she was really looking forward to seeing Dune, the second part, and I was really looking forward to talking to her about it. So that's one thing I'll regret, because I'm sure she would have loved this film as well. She was a great fan of the channel, so yeah, I just wanted to give that a wee shout out. So just a wee bit of personal stuff at the end there. But it is an incredible film. She would agree if she had gotten to see it. So please, if you can, go and see it in IMAX. Our cinema was literally quaking. It was so loud, but it fits so well when the worms come in and all these things. You need to experience this film. It's this showcases what cinema is, you know, and that's just a great experience that we need more of. That will be all from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It is the best way to support the channel. Leave a comment down below about anything you want to say, the books, the films, comparisons, you know, like I said, there's so many things I couldn't mention due to time, or maybe wanted to mention. Stilgar is one thing I thought of. I mean, he was a bit of comic relief here, which was kind of funny, but it's still a bit weird thinking about how he's in the book. He's always very stoic and stuff, but yeah, no, I thought it was good overall. Anyway, any comments you want to leave, put them down below. I'll thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one on Flying Wiener. Take care, bye.